pattern breakers, welcome back to Blk By Design. Quick question. When you hear voting rights, do you think of a law or do you think of people? Because the truth is, we didn't get access to the ballot because America just woke up one day and grew a conscience. No, we got access because Black people organized. Black people fought. And here's the part folks forget. Voting rights is not just history. It is a design problem. Somebody designed barriers. Somebody designed rules. Somebody designed systems to keep power in the same hands. And the only reason any of it changed is because people redesigned a system from the ground up. So today I want to tell you about 5 Black voting right activists who shaped why we have access to voting at all. And by the end, we're going to bring it all the way to 2026. Because voter suppression did not retire. It just got a rebrand. But before I get into all of that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a single episode of Blk By Design. Okay, I have one quick note. This episode is not a complete history of the voting rights movement. I may do that in a different episode later on. It is 5 stories that show you how change actually happens. And I want to be real with you. A lot of people know their names, but few people know the strategies. So we're going to talk about both today. And also, if you're listening while driving, cleaning, working out, whatever you're doing, thank you for listening. I'm going to drop a few pause and reflect moments. Not because I'm a professor. No, I'm not. But because this isn't just information. It is a blueprint. Or dare I say, black print. Okay, so before we get into the 5 activists, we have to name the game. Historically, voter suppression has always had the same goal. Keep Black political power from becoming real power. The tactics changed, but the logic stayed. So you will see paper barriers like literacy tests, poll taxes, and confusing forms. Physical barriers like intimidation, violence, arrests, and even job loss. Geography barriers like moving polling locations, closing precincts, and forcing long lines. And then narrative barriers like disinformation, like your vote doesn't matter. Both sides are the same. And you're not informed enough. So note, suppression is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like administration. Sometimes it looks like policy. Sometimes it looks like common sense. So as we go through these stories, listen for the design choices. Pick up who the system is built for, who has to jump through hoops, and who gets to act like voting is effortless. All right, let's get into the 5. So, coming in at number 1, we have Fannie Lou Hamer. Born in 1917 in Mississippi, born into a sharecropping family. So right away, you're talking about a life that was shaped by a system that was designed to extract labor and keep people stuck. Fannie Lou Hamer was not supposed to be famous. She was not supposed to be a national figure. She was not polished for the cameras. And that's exactly why she broke through. Fannie Lou Hamer tried to register to vote. And the punishment was immediate. She was fired, she was threatened, she was beaten, and she was jailed. And I want to pause here because we have to sit with the reality. You can lose your job for attempting to be counted. You can be beaten for attempting to register to vote. You could be jailed for trying to register to vote. Just sit with that for a minute. But how did Fannie Lou Hamer respond? Not with silence and not with retreat, but with organizing and creating the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party in 1964. Fannie Lou Hamer and other activists challenged the all-white Mississippi delegation at the Democratic National Convention. And when Fannie Lou Hamer testified, America heard her on national television. And that is where the line comes from. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. But what that quote really means is, I'm sick and tired of being told to be patient. I'm sick and tired of being told to wait. I'm sick and tired of being told to accept less than full humanity. Fannie Lou Hamer showed us the power of truth-telling as strategy. Not inspirational truth, political truth. The kind that makes the country embarrassed on record. So what is the national TV of 2026? Where is the place that forces the truth into the public eye? Is it at a city council meeting, a local paper, a viral video? Is it a lawsuit, a mutual aid report? Because the lesson is not just be brave. No, the lesson is make suppression visible. All right. Coming in at number 2, we have John Lewis, born in 1940 from Troy, Alabama. And when people call John Lewis courageous, that is real. But it also flattens his story. Because courage is not a personality trait. Courage was a decision that was made over and over. John Lewis was a freedom rider. He was the youngest speaker at the March on Washington. And then you get to 1965, Selma. The Selma to Montgomery marches. At 25 years old, John Lewis led about 600 marchers across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And what happened next was state violence, beatings, horses, tear gas, a skull fractured on that bridge. That day became known as Bloody Sunday, and the images were broadcast nationwide. But here's the key point. That brutality was not new. But what was new was that the country saw it. And that visibility helped push the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Now, I want to make something clear. The Voting Rights Act did not end suppression. It blocked some of the most obvious tactics, though. It did create oversight, it created accountability, but suppression adapts. And John Lewis understood that. So even after the marches, he stayed in the work. He served in Congress for 33 years. He used the phrase good trouble. But good trouble is not chaos. Good trouble is a disruption with purpose. It is strategically refusing to cooperate with injustice. John Lewis teaches us that direct action and policy work are not opposites. They are a relay race. The street creates pressure. The pressure changes law. Law needs defenders. So when you think about your local politics today, what is the bridge? What is the place where the system expects you to turn around? And what would it look like to cross anyway? So, coming in at number 3, we have Ella Baker. Ella Baker, born in 1903, she is essential because she forces us to stop romanticizing leaders. Because movements do not run on charisma, as much as people will love to think this. No, movements run on structure. Ella Baker organized with the NAACP for decades. Now I know, I literally just said the NAACP. I know it's probably the NAACP, but we gonna say the NAACP over here because it's easier. Alright? So like I was saying, Ella Baker organized with the NAACP for decades. She helped build the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And she mentored the young activists who created the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or the SNCC for short. But Ella Baker's core idea was this: strong people don't need strong leaders. She pushed for participatory democracy, meaning people are not just supporters, people are decision makers. Now, why does this matter in the context of voting rights? Well, that's because voter suppression thrives when people feel isolated, when people feel like they're alone, when people feel like politics is something that happens to them. But Ella Baker's approach makes communities the engine. Ella Baker shows us that power is built in meetings, trainings, rides to the polls, childcare, food, and trust. It is not built in speeches alone. So question: if your whole political strategy depends on one person being perfect, it is fragile. So what would it look like to build something that still works when somebody gets tired, or sick, or targeted? Think about it. Coming in at number 4, we have Septima Clark, born in 1898. Now, this segment is about one of the most quiet weapons of voter suppression, and that is confusion. Literacy tests were used to block black voters, not because people could not read, but because the test itself was a trap. It was a moving target, a way to say you failed no matter what. But Septima Clark saw the design. So she responded with a redesign. She created citizenship schools, teaching adults to read and write so they could pass the registration tests, but also teaching people how to organize, how to advocate, how to be leaders. These schools spread across the South. They trained thousands. Because information is not neutral. Access to information is power. And education is not just a personal improvement. Education is a political tool. So, what are some of the modern day literacy tests that we have? Not can you read, but can you navigate this website? Can you take off work? Can you get an ID? Can you figure out what changed since the last election? If confusion is the barrier, clarity is the strategy. And lastly, coming in at number 5, we have Amelia Boynton Robinson, born in 1911. Amelia is the reminder that history is often the result of decades of work. and not one viral moment. She organized voter registration in Alabama starting in the 1930s. She invited Dr. King to Selma because she understood something. She understood that local fights need national attention. On Bloody Sunday, she was beaten unconscious. That photo of her on the bridge shocked the nation. And then at 104 years old, she crossed that same bridge with then President Obama in 2015. Amelia Boynton Robinson teaches endurance, a reminder that the work is not only for the moment, but is for the long haul. So, what causes are you willing to work on, even if the payout is not immediate, even if you don't get the credit? Because remember, that is how systems change. So now, let's bring this all home, shall we? In 2026, we are still dealing with voter suppression. And depending on where you live, it might show up as stricter voter ID laws, purges of voter rolls, gerrymandered maps that dilute black voting power, polling place closures, long lines in black neighborhoods, and smooth sailing everywhere else, or disinformation campaigns that target black voters specifically. And I want to say this carefully because I think this matters. The biggest trick is making people think the system is broken in a way that cannot be fixed. But our elders and our movement ancestors already showed us the response. Fannie Lou Hamer showed us make suppression visible. John Lewis showed us apply pressure and protect policy. Ella Baker showed us build community power, not personality codes. September Clark showed us teach people how the system works. And Amelia Boynton Robinson showed us play the long game. So the question is not, is suppression real? Because we know it is. But the question is, what are we building in response to the suppression? So let's get practical. If you want to protect the right to vote in 2026, here are some real actions. Check your voter registration, not once, but check it again closer to Election Day. Know your state rules, the deadlines, ID requirements, early voting, mail-in rules. Help somebody else vote. Each one teach one. Help your neighbor. Send the link. Offer a ride. Watch your kids for an hour. Maybe not that part, but you know what I mean. Text reminders. Volunteer. Become a poll worker. Start a voter registration drive. Man the election protection hotlines. But one of the most important things we can do is focus locally. And that's school boards, that's judges, sheriffs, county commissions. Because those races shape daily lives. And then what you can do is don't let disinformation live unchallenged. If you see a lie spreading, correct it with a source. And do it calmly. Because the goal is not to always win an argument. The goal is to keep people from being tricked out of their power. So pattern breakers. That was 5. Fannie Lou Hamer, John Lewis, Ella Baker, Septima Clark, and Amelia Boynton Robinson. If you learned something today, share this episode with one person. One person who might think voting rights is just old history. But I want to leave you with this. These 5 and countless others, they did not march, teach, organize, and bleed for us to sit this out. So please check your registration, help your people, and get into some good trouble. Until next time, pattern breakers. Bye.